I have a few staple lunch dishes: sandwiches, tacos, leftover soups, and a few go-to items that I can make very, very quickly, but are still really outstanding dishes. And one of these is my simple gnocchi dish. All it is some fresh tomato, some fresh basil, some olives, some gnocchi, which takes about 2 or 3 minutes to boil at most, and a little drizzle of olive oil if I'm feeling a little bit indulgent that day. So I'm going to show you how to make this very, very simple dish that is one of my favorites that I always put in my lunch rotation. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to get a few of our ingredients prepped. So I've got some basil here. I'm going to tear off, about 4 or 5 large basil leaves. And then what I do is I just stack them up like this, roll them closed, and then I just take my knife and I slice these into ribbons. Now the fancy word for this is a chiffonade, but really it's just thinly sliced basil. So all I do is I slice through those, and then I'm going to show you a trick to get the most flavor out of that basil. Actually, there's 2 tricks. The first one comes now, the second one comes later. So the first trick is I take that basil and I smash it with the back of my knife, and what that does is it breaks down the cellular structure and gets all the juices flowing and coming to the surface, which just creates more flavor in the final dish. Here I've got a nice, firm, fresh Roma tomato, and I just cut the end off, and then what I do is I take my knife and I go through and I dice up the Roma tomato. Now you can be finicky if you want and take out all the seeds and all that other stuff if you want to do that. I love the flavor from the juice and the seeds and all that other stuff that goes with it. So what I'm going to do is just take that, dice up my tomato, and then I'm going to take a few Kalamata olives. And then what I do is I just slice those guys in half. Usually I do about 8 or 10 Kalamata olives for an entire bowl of gnocchi. And you know what? I think I might do 12 today because that looks really good. A couple more olives there. And then I've got my pot of boiling water here. So what I'm going to do is add in the gnocchi. And these are little mini gnocchi that I just bought packaged because I love fresh gnocchi, but it also takes about an hour to make at least, because you got to boil potatoes, then you got to mix hot mashed potatoes with flour, then you got to roll them out, cut them, boil them, do all this work. And if it's lunchtime and I want something quick, I'm going for the packaged gnocchi. Now watch when you buy the packaged gnocchi, because a lot of gnocchi unfortunately has eggs added to it. So just look at the back of the package and check it out. Make sure that it is just flour, water, salt. There might be some sort of preservative in there, but that's it as far as it goes. These are basically little potato pastas. These will boil very, very quickly. These small ones, sometimes within a minute, but generally 3 minutes at most. As soon as they are done boiling, get them out of the water because they will turn soggy. So into my pot of boiling water. And then I just give them a little stir, and then what I do is I just wait for it to come to a boil, and you can tell when the gnocchi are done because they're going to float to the surface of the water. So as soon as you do that, just drain them away or scoop them out with one of those little baskets, like a frying basket or something you can use to scoop the gnocchi out. Now, here is that other trick I was telling you about to get the most flavor out of the basil and the tomatoes. I'm going to throw these in the bowl right now. Just mix them around a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that hot gnocchi once I drain it, and I'm going to dump it right on top of the basil and the tomatoes. And the heat from that gnocchi is going to slightly soften the tomatoes. It's going to get them to juice a little bit, and then it's going to get the basil to cook a little bit too. So I'm going to just wait for this to come to a boil. In fact, here's a little trick you can do. Throw a lid on the pot because it's going to create pressure and heat from multiple sides, not just from the bottom, and it's going to come to a boil much, much faster that way. Okay, so my gnocchi has floated to the surface at this point, so I'm just gonna turn the heat off. I don't have a sink next to me, but I do have this really fancy pot with these holes in the lid, so I can just pour the water right out. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take that steaming hot gnocchi and I'm gonna dump that right on top of that basil and that tomato. Now I'm not done yet because I still have to dress this. So what I'm gonna do is just get some fresh ground black pepper, some crushed red pepper. I like mine spicy. You can use as much or as little as you want on that. I'm gonna do just a pinch of salt around that. And then what I'm gonna do is finish this off with some locally produced organic olive oil. And I have to say, this is one of the best olive oils I've had. It rivals the olive oil that I had when I was over in Italy. And it's made by Queen Creek Olive Mill. You're welcome, Queen Creek Olive Mill. Send me a commission if you want to. I'm not expecting it, but this is absolutely one of the best olive oils I've had. And this is their Arcangelo version of the olive oil. It's got a really nice peppery, kind of fruity flavor to it. And then it's got a nice mellow smoothness under it. And of course, if you're doing no oil added, you know what you do? You don't add it, you just eat the dish as is. But I'm gonna add just a little bit of drizzle to that. So I did that pretty slow. That was a couple teaspoons, maybe a tablespoon at most. Mix all that in. And I can see that basil has turned this really nice dark green color because it's partially wilted. It's released all that flavor. And now I'm gonna have a bite. And that gnocchi just has a really nice, kind of smooth, very warming feeling and texture to it. And then it's got the brightness of the basil, shots of saltiness from the Kalamata olives and the little bit of salt that we dressed it with. And then it's got just that smooth mellowness from the olive oil, and then it's finally got little shots of spiciness through it. I love this dish. Took me about 5 minutes to make total. When I'm not talking about it, that's a quick, delicious, satisfying lunch.